In this video, I thought I'd do a discussion on move number 19 in pattern Choong-Jang. So that's move number 19 in pattern Choong-Jang. This is one of the most peculiar, unknown moves in Taekwondo. And in every version of the book that I have seen, they're doing it differently from the way that I was taught this technique. And so it's interesting because, first of all, let's take a look here and see what this move is. So I can bring this up and show it to you. It's this one right here. So this is move number 19. And I also want you to pay attention to this picture over here, because I think this may also play a factor in creating a little bit of confusion as well. When you look at move number 19, it is described as being a low side front snap kick with the right knee. So we've got kind of this broken English, this strange way of talking, saying a front snap kick with the knee. When we're attacking with the knee, we would call that a knee front strike. So we would never say we're doing a front snap kick using the knee, because you don't kick with your knee. But anyway, execute a low side front snap kick with the right knee while pulling both hands in the opposite direction as if grabbing the opponent's leg. So it said as if grabbing the opponent's leg. So, and pulling them in the opposite direction. So again, this is very strange. So you can clearly see he's got his hands down here on one side of his body, and he's doing the knee attack over here. So where to begin with this technique? So the way that I was always taught this technique is as a knee side strike. So if I come over to page 62 in this guide, here is knee side strike. And again, I'm hoping that you can see this on the video, but you can see right here, here's the knee, here it is being done to an opponent. So it looks exactly like a roundhouse kick, but without the leg being extended. And whether you want to do this with a grab or not, it certainly seems plausible that you would be able to do this technique with a grab. That's how I was taught, is to do it with a grab. Grabbing along the side here at your opponent's, what would be their right shoulder, or along the side, the collar, the shoulder, the arm on this side, and pulling them in to a right knee side strike. Now again, the way they describe it, they will call it a turning kick with the knee. So first of all, we don't call it a turning kick, we call it a roundhouse kick, because there are many kicks in Taekwondo that involve turning. So when you say turning, you're not being specific. So we would call it a roundhouse kick. If you're doing this, this would be a roundhouse kick, not a turning kick. And so we would describe this technique here, I guess you could say, as a roundhouse kick using the knee, but we're not going to say that. We're just going to say a knee side strike. So that is the technique as I have always been taught, because in the pattern, if you take a look here at, I was going to flip over. This is inside the actual pattern, Choong-Jang, move 19. And again, it's going to say execute a low front snap kick to C with the right knee while pulling both hands in the opposite direction as if grabbing the opponent's leg. But the previous technique to this that you just did was an X-fist pressing block. So you just did X-fist pressing block and blocked your opponent's attack. So based on what I'm seeing here, if you're doing X-fist pressing block, that typically means that you're not planning on grabbing the leg after that. Otherwise, it would be an X knife hand block. but that's a minor point. You can easily grab the leg out of an X fist pressing block. That's not a big deal. But when you watch them performing this technique, I'm looking at it to see if they're blocking the leg and then somehow grabbing the leg, pulling it up, and striking with the knee. But that's not what they're doing. They perform the X fist pressing block, and then they lower the two hands down to their side and strike using the knee. So like they reach up and pull down and strike with the knee. And so maybe it would make sense if you did the X fist pressing block or X knife hand pressing block, grabbed the leg, pulled the leg up, and then did a knee front strike from there. Perhaps that makes sense. But the way I've always been taught this technique is that you're doing the X fist pressing block to stop an attack, and now you're counterattacking by grabbing the opponent, striking them with a knee side strike, and then that creates the pivot to put you in position for the next technique. Because the very next technique, after you do this movement, you turn around and you do knife hand guarding block. So if you look at it, it's the knee strike, and then you pivot and come down facing the other direction. You're doing knife hand guarding block. So the knee side strike leads very nicely into that pivot. And you don't necessarily have to come completely in horizontal. You can come in on a 45-degree angle and do a 45 knee side strike. And whether you target the groin, whether you target the solar plexus, doesn't really matter. They're all valid targets. But you could picture the opponent after they do a front snap kick. You can kind of picture them. You just stop their leg. Most people kick with their right leg. So if it's a right front snap kick and you block it, they're probably standing there in kind of a semi-L stance with their right leg a little bit in front of them. So their groin is going to be exposed on this side right here. Perfect for a knee side strike. And so I don't know if this technique was changed very, very early on, before some of the earliest books were ever published, but it's interesting. And it's interesting how this picture here has a technique later in the pattern where the person's doing a front snap kick with a grab. And here you can see this 45-degree upward arrow is kind of confusing. It's almost like it's indicating that he should be kicking up on a 45-degree, but that's not possible for technique number 7. That's not what's happening there. So the arms are being brought down and the foot is coming straight up. It's a front snap kick. So a different technique, but interesting. It almost seems like maybe they meant to put this here or something, but it's very, very interesting. That's why if I go back and I take a look at some of the stuff here, for example, with front snap kick, it talks about the targets where front snap kick is used. It talks about how a knee can be used. And if I go down here, page 49, so I go down to page 49, here it actually shows a knee front strike. Interestingly enough, it doesn't show it being used with a grab, but here it shows a couple possible applications for knee front strike: hitting a seated opponent in the face, hitting a standing opponent perhaps in the groin, lower abdomen. But then they also have a technique called side front snap kick. So we have a side front snap kick. And again, this is just a front snap kick. There's nothing different about this. It's a front snap kick. You can see here it says it's used for attacking an opponent located at the side front. The only difference here is they're turning the hip over slightly as they kick. But you can see otherwise there's virtually no difference. Right? It says everything else is the same with this technique. Interestingly, they don't show a picture of it being done with the knee. So they have side front snap kick, but they don't have a picture of it being done with the knee. So if the body is being rotated, the hips are being rotated here at the bottom, you would think the knee front strike would probably be the same, right? Now if I go down to page 69 in here, so jumping ahead a little bit, here they come up with something that they call an upward kick. So once again, this doesn't warrant being a separate technique. It's not a separate technique. This is simply a knee front strike combined with the twin head grab. So the technique that appears, for example, in pattern Tae, it appears in pattern Choong-Jang, I think it is. Extend both hands as if to grab the opponent's head. And then the very next technique after this one here is execute an upward kick with the right knee, pulling both hands downward. So this is the knee front strike combined with a grab. So you're grabbing the opponent, you're pulling them down into a knee front strike. And this technique appears in a couple of the color belt patterns. So we see this, there's precedent for this. And here they refer to it as an upward kick. What they should really just be calling it is front snap kick with the knee, or knee front strike, because there's no difference between them. So, but here it is. This shows that here's the technique combined with a grab. Whether you're grabbing the person behind the head, whether you're grabbing them at the shoulders and pulling them down into the attack, there it is. So, and then if I go back, again, page 58 is where we have turning kick, which you can very clearly see as roundhouse kick. So here's turning kick, and it says it's performed with ball of the foot, instep, and knee. And sure enough, if I scroll down, I showed this already, but you know, here's roundhouse kick. And then when I scroll down to page 62, there's knee side strike. And it's hard to see in this picture if he's actually grabbing the person or not. If he's just doing the knee strike or if he's actually grabbing the shoulder and pulling them into it. But given that there's precedent for it in other techniques with knee front strike, it seems to make sense that you would also grab the opponent for a knee side strike, even if you don't do it all the time. But anyway, that is the way I have always been taught that technique, is as a knee side strike. So that's move number 19 in pattern Choong-Jang. And I've never seen another school that has done it the same way that we learned it. Everybody else is doing this bizarre leg grab, which to me doesn't make sense, because you already stopped the attack with an X-fist pressing block. You stopped their attack. Now you're within grabbing range. You should be able to grab and counterattack with a knee strike. You shouldn't still have their leg up in the air at that point, and they shouldn't be kicking you again at that range. So the way it's described in the book doesn't make sense, and it breaks with the convention that every other time we do this technique, we're always grabbing up behind the head, up high, and pulling them straight down. So why would it be different in just that one instance, right? Doesn't make sense for that. Unless, like I said, pulling the hands down in the opposite direction, that would be for a knee side strike. So anyway, that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.